You know, sometimes when I think about why we're not doing agric, I think because because when I was young in my house, cutlasses of many types, hoe, mattock, rake, and the rake there were 2 types.
Yes.
Today in my house, there's nothing like that.
At all.
In your house, I don't think there's anything like that. Your children don't understand.
I have a emo.
Because when we were children, we used to farm.
Yes.
So during vacation, we'll go. There were lands between Hacho, Legon, Agbogba. There were a lot, and many families were farming. So in vacation, we all go, and it was a normal thing to do. I think because of Achampo, we were all farming. But today, if you ask your daughter, what is rake? Daddy, what are you talking about? She doesn't know rake. Because of that, we have to import onion from Niger.
It's sad. It's sad.
Charlie.
It's sad, and we think it's civilization. It's sad.
No,
we're busy importing almost everything.
But let me sanitize what I'm saying. You don't need everybody in the country to farm to be food sufficient. You just need to have the right policies in place. Because in countries that, like Israel, I don't think 30% of Israelis are into farming. Yet they produce food more than 4 times the food we produce. Meanwhile, the population that is in farming is like 12% or even less. So the issue is not really number. And I just use the rake issue as a funny way of entering the discussion. The real issue is that we are not productive. We haven't learned or implemented agronomical practices that can help us produce more from the same piece of land. Do you get it? So a lot of our farming is still subsistence. I mean, you drive on the motor, you see somebody doing cabbage, you see somebody doing onions. How many bags will he get? Meanwhile, in places like Niger, with all if you go to the size of the farms they have, that they are exporting to us. So let me read that. Let me play the audio for you. Onion traders in Ghana are urging the government to intervene for I don't know what they want the government to do, for the release of 70 trucks transporting onions from Niger to Ghana through Benin. So that's even a longer route. Originally, the route would have probably branched through Burkina, but it's now coming through Benin. You know, Niger is bordering Benin and Nigeria. So the borders have been closed. So the trucks would have come through northern Benin, drive through Togo, and coming through Ghana.
Benin, Togo,
yeah. So here is Yakubu Apendiba, spokesperson for the onion dealers, calling for swift government action to bring the onions.
Yesterday night, they opened about 35 cars of onion. And another one I've tracked at Burkina border, from Niger to Burkina border, about 45 cars are there right now. So now our situation in Benin, today, the Ghana ambassador went there on Saturday to talk to them. And they have, yesterday around 8 o'clock, they removed the onion cars. And they are on the border doing the papers, but some have passed through from Benin. But the rest are tracked at Burkina border right now. So now, if we come to the onion market today, it's not easy. You see the onion that we are selling, 10 million, 11 million, now 15 million, 16 million. There's not even onions at some other places. So now it's not easy. So we are appealing to the government to help us to talk to Burkina president, and then so that they will be able to escort their cars from there to Ghana.
So that's the issue. Yesterday as well, I monitored an interview the agric minister granted to Peace FM, where he said that there are 3.5 million farmers in the country, but only a small fraction of this group are into poultry. He said Ghana consumes 325,000 metric tons of poultry, but local farmers only produce 15,000 tons. Think about that. We consume 325,000 tons, and our local farmers produce only 15,000.
That's insignificant.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the problem.
That's poultry.
Yes, poultry. So, I go back to the point. Our challenge is that we are not productive. So So it's not even a number of people who are, I mean, look, you have 3.5 million people in farming, and yet you don't produce enough food to feed yourself. You actually import $2 billion worth of food every year. So Ghana's problem is productivity. In advanced societies, less than 10% of the population is into farming. The same land, so there's something they call yield per acre. For most food items, we are far behind. Some of it is the scale of production. We are still using cutlass and hoe and waiting for the rain and rake. People are using large machines to cultivate large tracts of land. We don't do this. A lot of these Francophone Sahelian countries produce onions, produce tomatoes. And these countries have, like Niger has 40% of its budget donor funded. Niger is a poor country, yet they are able to produce enough onion to sell to us. Burkina Faso, with all these problems, still produces enough tomatoes. We had a major agric program. We trumpeted it with a lot of noise. You know, somehow we've not seen the benefit. We've not seen the benefit. So I'll be going on 2 tracks this morning. Part of the track will be talking about the implications of the instability in the sub-region for all of us, all right? Because there are people who are saying that the approach by ECOWAS to say they're going to intervene directly is not the best approach. That's one angle. But then for me, the more emotive angle is the food angle, all right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we shouldn't import food, but for me, what makes this troubling is that the coup happened in the last week of July. We are in the second week of August, and already there's looming shortage of onions. That's serious. You would have thought that maybe it would take like a year, a month or whatever, 3 months. Do you get it? Like just 2 weeks. So is it like we don't store enough onions, or is it that we don't, because the trucks haven't come in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks now you get onions? That's serious. So the question is, what is the strategic stock of tomatoes, maize, flour, rice, whatever? If we were to ask, if the borders closed for 6 months, if every West African country said they won't bring anything, in 6 months, what would Ghana not have? I think those are questions we should ask ourselves. And whilst a policy like Operation Feed Yourself is great as a stopgap, I don't think it addresses the long-term productivity issues in agriculture. Because what you need to do is to make your land produce much more per hectare or per acre. That means that the use of fertilizer of different kinds, modern farming implements, irrigation. Less than 10% of your arable land is under irrigation. Yet you had a major government project called One Village, One Dam. So when you look at the stated policy and then you look at the result on the ground, you tend to wonder. PFJ sunk in billions of cedis. And yet after 2 weeks of coup in Niger, you can't have onion. There's something seriously wrong. You get me? So the productivity issues will not be addressed by nice slogans with fancy names. And you see, food growth, it doesn't believe, you can say anything you want. If you don't apply the right practice, the food will not grow. And if the food doesn't grow, you don't have the food. So the only way we can judge our agric policies is food security. Food security is the way to go. So I really think there's I wish the people managing agric would tell us. I hope they'll tell me that this shortage of onion that is being announced by the onion trader is not true, and that hopefully he's just being alarmist. I am hoping that Tanko and Brian Echampo and Co will call and say, "Oh, onions, we have 1 month stock of onions. We don't have any problem with onions. Tomatoes, we have a lot of it." I hope we are wrong when we say that we could be having a shortage of onions in Ghana. I really hope we are wrong. All right. And with all due respect to Niger, Ghana is a far more advanced country than Niger. In fact, in West Africa, Ghana is probably the most advanced, or if not the second most advanced economy in the whole sub-region. But our agricultural production doesn't reflect that. We are very import dependent. I think the Francophone countries do better with large-scale farming. Côte d'Ivoire does far better than we do. Burkina Faso in some products. And as you've seen, even Niger in some products. You know. But I think our soils are fertile. We have the Volta. we are very we have been blessed by nature. We have a stable democracy. A lot of these countries don't even have one. But it seems for us, the stable democracy is just multiply radio stations and do politics and propaganda. So food prices are very expensive. We are very import dependent. Our economy, the Russia-Ukraine war seemed to have affected us more than everybody else. Our economic management is not strong. And it's a challenge, guys. So I don't know. Maybe I can come to you on the angle of the MPs and the security people, because in Ghana, the MPs from certain parts of the country have been expressing concern. In Nigeria as well, MPs from certain, because the war, the situation in the Sahel affects the northern part of Ghana, the northern part of Nigeria, northern part of Togo more. So a lot of people in Accra don't know how serious it is. In the past 2 weeks, the influx of refugees through Boku and parts of the north, very, very serious. So maybe when we discuss Niger, Burkina, Mali, it seems very far for a lot of listeners in Accra. But if you listen to people like Albert Alazuga, who's the MP for Garu, Mahama Yariga, MP for Boku, if you listen to senators from northern Nigeria, they have a very different view of the situation. And I dare say they are calling for more cool heads to prevail. Because beyond even the food issue, if the instability in the sub-region continues, there's going to be a humanitarian crisis on our hands. So this is the synopsis for the day. I'll give you the chance to tidy it up for me whilst I read a couple of quick announcements. So Sky, give me 2 minutes. In the meantime, listeners, let's hear from you. 054-998-6996. Does your child know what a rake is? Has your child seen a hoe before? A hoe. Do they know what a mattock is? When I was in class 5, there was an agric book. The first time I heard the word secateurs. That word, I got the question wrong because I think it was GSS 1 rather. Mm-hmm. And the question was, and Mrs. Glover was our Greek teacher, which implement is used for pruning? Mm-hmm. Only 1 or 2 people got the answer correct. And the tool, I'll never forget the answer. The tool is called, I don't even know, secateurs. Yeah. It's like a long scissors. Mm-hmm. A tool for pruning. JSS 1, Agric Science, Mrs. Glover. And those days, we used to see the equipment. We used to see them with our physical eyes. Mm-hmm. But now our children don't even know. They don't know. I don't even think they know what a hoe is. Before they can know, do you know secateurs? I'm serious. Oh, yeah. What tool is used for pruning? Yeah. Mrs. Glover, I tell you, God bless her heart. Secateurs. JSS 1, Agric Science. Mm-hmm.
These days, I wonder, do they even learn agric science in school?
Well, I got a friend of mine's company deals in seeds, so they brought us some seeds. So this is what we did. This water dispenser, the water dispenser, when we finish using it, some of the companies don't take it back.
Okay.
So we cut it in half and we poured black soil in it. This is in my house. And then we got pepper and okra seeds, and we got the kids to plant so they can see planting at close quarters in Accra. So I'm doing planting for education and enlightenment. So the minister is doing planting for food and jobs. So my boys planted okra and pepper. Mm-hmm. Yes, so it's called planting for
education
and enlightenment because. But they planted it in. So we bought this water thing when they bottle is empty. Yeah. So we cut it and then we got black soil and put it inside. And then every morning they water it so that they will see that this is how things work. Because there's no hope for the I don't even think they do agric science again. So now there's no hope. So imagine these people grow up to become ministers. What do they do for Ghana? They don't. So now I'm doing a special plant initiative in my house so that my children can even see. As for a rake, I have to go and look. I don't even know where to get a rake again. And the house doesn't even have grass. Charlie Neta. It be something. Rake. So they have planted onion and they have to water it every morning. So we do pepper and okra. Meanwhile, when you were their age, this guy, you could cut. Look, you can even use a mattock to uproot. You can uproot a tree. When I was young, when we go to Peki to my mother's place, the training involved going to farm in the morning. You will carry firewood to the house. They will cook on the farm. You eat it with farm implements. You cook. You eat it. You have to learn how to rake, burn, all kinds of things. How to do a yam mound, and how to put the stick on it so that the yam will grow based on the direction you give it, and how to make sure. Oh, beautiful things. How to do charcoal. Oh my God, Charlie. And these things we learned before age 15. Now we are importing everything from China. All the shops are selling plastics. Everybody is buying. And enlightenment means going to Accra Mall and go and buy apples from South Africa and eat it with juice from Israel. Means you only be. So you go and buy apple. Meanwhile, mango, nice mango from Dodowa, you won't eat. You wash mango, put it. We don't want organic. Everything is now imported GMO things. We are eating it happy. We are getting funny diseases. Things that we didn't know when we were young, now they are coming. We think that when you go and shop, they give you a yellow rubber bag and you come home. Yeah, you are living the life. Meanwhile, in those days, contombre grow behind your house. You wash it. Cocoyam, Kobe. They grew to old age. Every week we are in hospital. Kidney stones, gallbladder, something. We are eating foolish things. We have to get serious, Ghana. Yo. So I'm doing planting for enlightenment and education. We started with okra. A friend of mine brought me the seed. Oh yeah, they brought the seed. We planted it. Okra and pepper. And we water it every morning. And everybody will go and look at it. The children want to say, I say it doesn't grow like that. So they want to check, let's leave the thing. They want to uproot it and see. They're going to say, no. When you plant something,
leave it.
Just water it and pray. Don't go and try and see anything. Just leave it. So Sky, I know I've gone in many directions this morning. So maybe Nathan, you should help me with the announcement, because where my mind is flying this morning, I don't think it will land well if I don't control myself in this matter. Charlie.
Well, on August 12th, if you drive a Toyota, get to any of Toyota Ghana's branches in Accra and Tema, and just see what they are doing. They are giving free vehicle diagnosis for all Toyota and Lexus models, happening on Saturday, the 12th of August. You can call 0302-429-80125 for more details. Toyota, superior quality. Now, do you want to gain proper control of your finances? Join the APSA Ready to Work webinar to help you transition from learning to earning. A team of experts will be live on our Facebook and YouTube channels on Thursday, August 10. And the topic is Understand and Manage a Budget. So that's what's happening on Thursday. That's Africanacity.
That's APSA.
APSA. Now, we are talking money. We all know that the person who has the money has the power.
Yes.
Good. Now all of us want to.
It doesn't necessarily have the sense, but it has the power.
Well, GameParkGames.com is saying that you can play their games and walk away with loads and loads of cash. You can visit their website, GameParkGames.com, or dial *946# on all networks. Just choose 4 numbers between 0 and 9. Easy to play, easy to win. This game is regulated by the NLA.
All right, let me tell you about Accra Business School. Boost your career with our prestigious MSc degrees from KNUST. Pick from HRM, Communication and International Marketing, International Relations, Public Affairs, or IT Management. In just 12 months, our MBA can be yours. Dive into our BSc programs in IT, security, and cybercrime. So programs include IT management, business management, endorsed by top universities in Ireland and Wales. We offer flexible entry, payment, and learning options. Visit abs.edu.gh or call 0263 888 or 026 388 666. Let Accra Business School elevate your future today. Now, if you are tired of juggling countless systems and drowning in spreadsheets, say goodbye to the chaos and welcome the new revolution with Oracle NetSuite ERP, the all-in-one cloud-based business application system. No more fragmented data or disjointed processes. Enable collaboration amongst your team. Oracle NetSuite offers you functionalities in financials, CRM, manufacturing, inventory and warehousing, e-commerce, billing, procurement, and analytics, and BI. Call Life Trust Consulting, your certified NetSuite partner, on 0501 516 090. Join over 36,000 global businesses and unlock your full potential with NetSuite. Sky, I need to say that. You see, whilst I may be sounding jocular in the discussion, part of the reason why our economy never seems to recover is because we spend money importing things we should produce here, like food. And I wrote this in my article that I delivered at some graduation recently, where $2 billion every year importing food can be reduced by even 60 or 70% if we just get serious and committed. We import beans from Niger. We import onions from Niger. We import tomatoes from Burkina Faso. Meanwhile, you have many communities along the banks of the Volta. The Volta Lake is, look, if you go to Asuchari, how difficult will it be to do irrigation on a large scale? You have the Volta Lake, a lake with sky, the Volta Lake. All the way from KJB, Afram Plains, down through to Pando, to Germany, coming down to Akosombo, to Asuchari, down to Bato, to Ada. Is it that agric is so complex? We have center for all kinds of things, ministries of agric, departments of whatever. Every food item we take, I have a data I don't have time to go through. We don't produce enough. Tomatoes, we import. I was going through a list given me, if I can retrieve this, and the issues are all the same. Our farmers are not using modern implements. They are not getting access to the help. There's not enough irrigation. Simple. And this story, since I did agric science in JSS1, is the same. I was going through data on various food items. Maybe once during the PFJ, we got sufficient in maize briefly. Even yam. You know, it's almost like we haven't gotten the right mindset as a nation, as a government, towards making, I don't know what the objective of agri policy is. Whether to just make campaign, I don't know. You know, that's not for food buffer stock. Now their main job is food for, friend is saying, secondary school education. Even free SHS, the people don't have food to eat. Sky, when I was in Presec, there were 4 science classes, there was 1 agric class. The agric science students, they were always on the school farm. In fact, our agric prefect, he was mostly found in the school farm. Do you know why? The eggs we were eating in the dining hall, it was our poultry farm that was. We had an agric teacher come, this is a champion. Not the English teacher, the agric science teacher. Our agric students, they were mostly in the school farm. And some of the food we ate, they produced it for us. So at least for eggs, dear, I know that the school farm was producing eggs, sometimes chicken. If you go to Presec now, opposite opposite the alumni center, that bush there, that's the school farm. They were planting all kinds of things. They spend most of their time there. I don't know if these days they still go. I'm not sure I don't know how many of our secondary schools even are producing food for their canteens. Meanwhile, the schools have land. Achimota has big land. Akraka has some land. Presec land starts from IPS Junction to Atomic Junction. Rolling circle almost. So they have land. I'm sure there's some of the schools, at these schools, even your school, 3 Sec, I'm sure they have land. But they are all waiting for buffer stock. Free SHS, government procurement. So now procurement is the order of the day. Import, we are importing, and we are eating it. So it's a lot of things. You know, the policies don't seem to be working. The government itself, I don't know. There's a new minister of agriculture. Let's hope he has how many years does he have? How many years to election? Let's pray that
15 months.
because he used to be the dining hall prefect of Presec, maybe he will remember. Maybe he will use that energy to do something about. When I was informed, he was the DHP, and he used to say, "No food is leaving the hall." You know, Brian Champo. Yeah, that's what he used to say. No food is leaving the hall. Did they used to say that in your school?
We didn't exactly have
you were a day
boarding at
student?
the time I was in Greytown.
As for
But
me,
now they have a boarding house.
say
so-
no
But
food.
we're producing.
He said no food is leaving the hall. So maybe he can use that energy to do something. I really pray. Because it's a sad story
Yep.
that 2 weeks after a coup in Niger, they say we won't get onion. So the kenke they are bringing today, we'll eat it like that.
Osabala, no glue, the home, ya fake bago.
Oh, me, I can eat it without sabala.
Oh, true.
Because you know when you cut it and put it on it,
What's that?
onion. The kenke, I hope the kenke bowl are coming.
Oh, brutal. If they don't come,
Otherwise, I'll withdraw.
all recognition.
If they don't come, they really go sporting this morning. All that.
9801. All right, now let me tell you about tomatoes. So tomatoes can be grown in all the agroecological zones of Ghana. Major commercial production regions are the Upper East, Bono East, Ashanti, Greater Accra, and the Volta region. So these are the 5 regions for tomatoes: Upper East, Bono, Ashanti, Greater Accra, and Volta. Now, the tomato calendar varies according to the producing region and the type of production system used. Irrigation or irrigated production takes place in the northernmost regions from December to April. In the months that follow, rain-fed tomato from the forest transition zone enters the market. So the north starts, the forest belt continues. So Volta and Greater Accra then take over in the last quarter of the calendar. So on paper, Ghana should have all year-round supply of tomatoes. But there are usually periods of deficit when traders turn to neighboring countries, especially Burkina Faso, which supplies the Ghanaian market, particularly during the first half of the year. So this is January to June. Total tomato consumption has increased in the last decade, and the average total consumption, this is 2021 data, 800,000 metric tons of fresh and processed tomato. This is so because tomato is a staple ingredient in the diet of Ghanaians and accounts for 38% of total vegetable expenditure, right? So 38% of vegetable expenditure is tomatoes. Is that true? 38%. Okay, fine. However, domestic production has not kept up with demand, despite expanding
Have you seen any soup
without tomatoes.
or stew without tomatoes?
So about 40% of our vegetable expenditure is tomatoes. Good. Now, tomato production has expanded from 318,000 tons in 2009 to 420 in 2019. This is Ministry of Food and Agriculture 2019. Now, over 90% of fresh tomato imports come from Burkina Faso. Burkinabe tomatoes form an important part of the supply chain, especially in the first half of the calendar year. Higher yields from Burkina Faso than Ghana, competitive transportation costs, a well-established supplier network, and a good reputation explain the popularity of Burkinabe tomatoes. And this is based on research. So their yields are higher. They have a competitive transport cost, which means it's probably cheaper to bring the tomatoes from Burkina through to wherever than from some parts of Ghana. A well-established supplier network. You heard the people talking about onions. So the network is there. And a good reputation explain the popularity of Burkinabe tomatoes in Ghana. Estimates of the total amount of tomatoes imported into Ghana vary according to data source. However, the Ghana National Tomato Traders and Transporters Association estimate annual total imports of over 100,000 metric tons. Okay, now the production is 420,000, and the importers say they import over 100,000 metric tons. Then let me talk about tomato processing just to make it nice. The few tomato processing plants installed in Pualugu, Techiman, and Wenchi have all been shut down due to inaccessibility to quality raw materials at affordable prices. The processing plants could not compete with tomato market queens for fresh tomatoes. Ghana is estimated to consume more than 100,000 metric tons of tomato paste annually. Market analysis of the tomato paste industry shows that there are several tomato paste brands on the Ghanaian market, most of which originate from Europe and China. The tomato paste companies are mostly located in Tema, And they import concentrate and package it into paste for the local market. And some names are mentioned. The issues in the tomato sector: relatively low yield at the farm level, under 10 metric tons per hectare. So compare that to Burkina, which produces more. Low adoption of improved seeds. Tomato varieties for commercial agro-processing are not being grown. Many farmers still prefer to plant local varieties, typically with high water content, many seeds, and poor color and low Brix level. Ghana also has policies that favor import with respect to benchmark variations. Temperature and relative humidity variations in Ghana affect the productivity of most tomatoes. Okay, so what does government try to do? The government introduced PFJ, which intended to increase the usage of improved vegetable varieties, including production through expanding irrigation with dams and solar water pumps for dry season farming, and provide post-harvest storage facilities. There's also the Ghana Cares supporting 3 tomato initiatives, which was the production and distribution of consumer preferred market demand tomato varieties, facilitate improved tomato breeder seeds by WACI and CSIR, and provide interest rate subsidy to Wedi Africa and Afric Link tomato processing. But imports of tomatoes keep increasing by leaps and bounds. So that's the problem. So despite these interventions, do you have time for rice? Or you've had enough? I have rice too.
Yeah, right.
I'll give you rice. Yes. Okay. All right. So rice is an important staple in Ghana, cultivated across all ecological zones. Ghana's history of rice support dates back to the 70s. However, with market liberalization, fiscal austerity, and the removal of fuel and fertilizer subsidies in the 80s, rice production cost and competitiveness were adversely affected. So import of rice then increased. Over the years, the government has implemented several rice-related interventions, such as the you are old enough to know this, SDR something, Sustainable Development Rain-Fed Lowland Rice Production. That's number 1. Number 2, Rice Sector Support Project, RSSP. That's number 2. Number 3, Nerika Rice Development Project. That's NRDP. And number 4, Enhanced Access to Quality Rice Seed Initiative. And there's more. Now here's the facts. Paddy rice production in Ghana has increased steadily at 11% per annum since 2008, from 300,000 tons to 986,000 tons in 2020. All right. By contrast, yields also grew at 4.5% per year, according to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. But local rice demand and consumption is estimated at 1.4 million metric tons, with a per capita of 45 kilograms. So everybody eats 45 kilograms of rice per year. Despite all of this, there's still increase in imports of rice. All right. Now let's talk about the rice value chain. The rice value chain has seen more processing plants in recent years, with current installed capacity of 500,000 metric tons as of 2022. So 500,000 metric tons of rice processing. This can process paddy rice comparable to imported rice, but working at a very low capacity and not fully utilized due to a myriad of challenges facing producers and millers. What are the problems? Inefficient seed system, inappropriate harvesting and threshing technology, inadequate storage facility, and a mixture of rice varieties, all impacting the quality of paddy available for processing. In 2020, Ghana imported 708,000 metric tons of rice, valued at $200 million, becoming the 20th largest importer of rice in the whole world. Meanwhile, there are 200 and something countries in the world. Ghana is number 20 importer of rice.
But per volume or price?
Good question. I think it's both, because they put the 700 metric thousand tons and then the 200 million in the same bracket. In the same year, 2020, rice was the third.
Per capita, we may be leading.
Okay. In the same year, rice was the third most imported product in Ghana. Rice was the third most imported product in Ghana.
And which year is this again?
2020. Ghana imports rice from... Okay, let's do what do you know now. Ghana, give me the number 1 country we import rice from. Yes, Nathan, yes.
the number one country we import rice from?
Yes.
The United States.
Sky, what is your answer?
Must be Thailand or
Sabens, what's your
India.
All of you are wrong. Vietnam.
Oh, Vietnam, yeah.
Vietnam.
200 and
Thailand.
yes. So number one is Vietnam, $282 million. Thailand, 45. Sky, but you have said
This is a country that just came out of long years of war. Vietnam.
But while the war was
Sorry.
going on,
so it's $2 million worth. Okay, so Vietnam. Vietnam is Vietnam is the first one, $282 million. Thailand is 45 million. That's number 2. India is number 3, 27 million. Pakistan, number 4, 20 million, and then China number 5. So our top 5 rice, Vietnam by a wide majority. Now let me finish. The import share of rice demand remains above 50%. This reflects growing preference for rice among Ghanaian households, especially as consumers become wealthier and more urbanized. The large dependence on rice imports heightens concerns about foreign exchange imbalances and vulnerability to international price shocks. Government policy over the years has been to reduce rice importation by supporting the production of higher quality product that is more accessible to Ghanaian consumers and can compete. Last one, poultry. So, commercial poultry production in Ghana can be categorized into large, medium, and small-scale enterprises, mostly in Ashanti, Bono, Ahafo, Central, and Greater Accra. They produce mainly eggs for the local market. Most commercial farmers focus on broiler production for sale only during the festive season, Christmas, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, where the Ghanaians buy live and dressed chicken and processed chicken. Most of the farms also target sell-off spent layer chickens at these times of the year. Very few poultry farms are set up to produce broilers. So this is a very important point in the poultry issue. Most of the poultry farmers produce eggs, and then they sell spent layers. So very few poultry farms are set up to produce broilers, which are processed for the local market. Domestically produced chickens are usually sold as live birds, with some freshly dressed birds offered for sale on the market as whole chicken and not cut into parts like imports. Consumption patterns of households in urban areas in Ghana are heavily weighted towards imported frozen chicken products. The reason for this trend are that it is cheaper than locally produced poultry, and it is already pre-cut, such as like quotas and wings. So they cut it before they bring, but we will sell it whole. And processed whole chicken and gizzards. As such, the convenience of a ready-to-use chicken product has boosted consumer demand. So the imported chicken is already ready cut, right? The national demand for poultry meat alone was estimated at 400,000 metric tons in 2020. Now, here's the big story. Local production is only 57,000 tons, right? So we eat 400,000, but we produce only 57,000. So we are not even producing 1/4. We are producing about 1/8 of the chicken we eat. Spent layers constitute a large proportion of domestically produced chicken meat. 90% of the chicken meat we eat locally, the ones you go is spent layers, so we don't do broilers. Domestic broiler production is only 2% of the demand in the country. Broiler meat imports constitute over 80% of total meat imports in the country. Okay, let's do another. What do you know? The top 5 poultry meat countries we import from. Which is number 1, Nathan? Poultry.
I didn't get the US right for the last one, but something tells me it's the US.
No, okay, so Sky, what's your answer?
I'll go with China.
Simons?
I know there's a Brazil somewhere.
Okay. So, Nathan, Brazil is number 3. Sorry, US is number 3, Brazil is number 5. Number 1 is actually Netherlands. So, Ghana...
Oh, then we are safe.
Yes. Yes. So Netherlands has the 30% of the market share for Ghana imports. Poland is number 2. US number 3. Belgium number 4. Brazil number 5.
Kuklu.
Yeah. There's also UK, Turkey, Germany, Canada, and Ukraine. The average unit price of imported chicken meat is below that of domestically produced chicken, owing to high cost of domestic production. So you see, we talked about Burkina Faso, productivity in tomatoes, Niger, productivity in onions. Then we spoke about Vietnam, productivity in rice. Now we are saying that all these countries produce, ship, and cut. So the person produces the broiler in Netherlands. They cut it, put it on a ship, and bring it to Ghana. It's still cheaper than the one we have here. It can be.
Economies of scale.
And then also poor output. What's the word they use? Productivity.
Productivity.
So the average price of a chicken imported versus domestic price per kilogram 2018 imported chicken, the average price was 14.5. The local, yes, price per kilogram. I'm not sure whether cedis or dollars, forgive me. But
cedis.
Yes.
It can
Yes.
be
And
dollars.
then domestic is 19.16. So the imported is 14.5, domestic is 19. Now in 2019, Samuel, listen to this. 2019, the average price of imported chicken dropped from 14 to 12. And the price for Ghanaian increased from 19 to 21. So in 2018, the gap was 5 cedis. In 2019, the gap increased to 10 cedis.
Yeah.
All right. 2020, it got worse. The imported was 12.7. The local was 23.12. So 11 cedi difference between imported and local. 2021, imported went to 15. Local went to 25. Okay, let me wrap up. Key sector issues. High feed cost. 60 to 70% of the cost of production continue to stifle attempts at reviving Ghana's broiler industry, which is where the maize comes in. So if you plant enough maize and soy, so if PFJ is working, one effect is that the price of feed will go down. Do you get the logic? So feed cost is driven by maize and soya. So if the cost of maize and soya is high, the cost of producing chicken is high. So chicken is like a beneficiary of the PFJ. So if PFJ is working, feed price should go down. 2, programs funded by GOG and development partners targeting smallholders and not tackling the cause of the high cost of feed. So they will give smallholder farmers support, but the feed cost is still high, so they are not able to really increase their production. Issues of dumping by countries of origination using export subsidy credits. So they will support their
Local.
So like the Netherlands will support local chicken producers
Vigorously.
so that they can have a cheaper price of chicken. So that's why the gap between local and imported chicken increased from 5 cedis in 2018 to 11 cedis in 2021.
And companies have something they call export mapping, where there are enclaves that they are given targets to export to specific geographical areas. So if you go to this enclave, they are doing production for Africa.
Okay.
If you go to this enclave, they do production to main Europe. That's what they do. And the Africa one, you can imagine.
Let me then finish this up. So dumping, export subsidy credit, high energy cost affect overall production, unwillingness of importers and traders to distribute and sell locally produced chicken through their widely distributed networks of cold stores across the country. This is a very important point. So this is a 5th point. Unwillingness of the importers and traders to distribute and sell locally produced chicken through their widely distributed networks of cold stores across the country due to the uncompetitive price of local chicken. So government policies have included import permits, level of tariff on imported poultry 35%, which is quite high, but still that didn't lead to a reduction because of the point he made. So there's enough local domestic support for exporting nations that even if your tariff is high, they still find a way to be cheaper than you. Some of the taxes are VAT, ECOWAS levy, EDIF levy, and all these things. Ghana in 2014 introduced something called the Broiler Revitalization Project, aimed at stimulating local broiler production, but this did not succeed. Government in 2019 launched Rearing for Food and Jobs. So 2014 was Broiler Revitalization Project. 2019, Rearing for Food and Jobs. Government said it will provide 50% subsidy for domestic producers, vaccine and feed. They even sold food at the Ministry of Agric. They put plantain on their campaign platform.
Oh, I thought you were doing a serious program.
No, I'm serious. I'm talking
But this last comedy that you
serious.
introduced.
So I'm saying that I'm talking about how what I'm saying is that
Cambridge, please.
what I've just put out for you is like 15, 20 years of the same problem.
15, 20 years
Yeah,
of
because
absolute failure.
Because the data is from 2008 to 2008 to 2022.
Yeah, 2 decades. Yeah.
2 decades. Yeah. So it tells you that this is really, it's a stronghold.
The system has failed.
It's a stronghold. So Niger, So now I'm coming to Niger. 2 weeks of
the coup. Borders closed.
70 trucks cannot come. And the sellers are saying that there will be a shortage of onions in Ghana. 2 weeks. So I don't know which angle you. It's a lot of things. You pick your choice. But I'm giving you it's a lot of things, guys. It's a lot. You know.
I think it's how they are reacting to the elements of their trade, because they from where they sit, they see the full length of the value chain. They actually know more than we do as to what is actually happening in Niger. They're not just talking from the border things. No, they have partners in Niger, and on daily basis they have information. So I can say this is more like a projection of what will happen if nothing is done about it. It's early days yet, but I would expect Brian Champon and his people to respond to this clear and present danger, you know, because it's onion that's been mentioned, but it repeats itself with other crops, you know. Tomato will come in very soon, and
beans.
We
import beans from Niger.
Well, whatever that means, I don't know. But if we are importing beans from Niger, importing onions from Niger,
tomato from Burkina,
and we are not reciprocating with any other produce, I don't know if there's something that we use to balance.
Well, they say we export our medicines to Niger, so apparently 80% of the medicines. Let me just read that.
But those are no agriculture.
Yes, I'm just talking about like.
Yeah, I mean in agriculture.
No, agriculture. No.
You know, because you know the potential for agric to employ peasants and locals is far bigger than what the medicine manufacturer would do. And so, if we are still grappling with this problem for 2 decades, then it's actually suggests that we need to have a deeper conversation about our the structure of our agric policies and how we have implemented them. The slogans are not useful.
Getting too many.
The slogans are not useful. We know that when you said for food and jobs, the food didn't come, the job didn't come. So it means that it did not work. Let's come back and look at what works for us as a country so that we do proper projection, crop by crop. And you see, anytime governments have talked about, let's invest in this part of this aspect of agriculture, they talked about broilers, something.
Yeah.
Before you see, they import the how do you call it? The chicks, the day-old chicks from some country, and then load it with industry players without thinking that they will get sick. There will be diseases. There will be other things, impediments on their way for which.
I just wanted to put something for you. Ghana does 10 tons per hectare for tomatoes. Guess how many tons per hectare Burkina Faso does? Take a wild guess. What do you know? Question 3. Ghana does 10.
100?
In fact, Ghana does under 10 metric tons per hectare.
Okay.
How
So
much
Burkina
does Burkina Faso?
50.
Sky, what are you?
I'll say 100.
What about you?
I know they used to do between 40 and 50.
So it's 60.
Yeah, they used to do between 40 and 50.
So Burkina does.
So they have actually increased.
So their productivity is 6 times.
But Bernard, let me say
Per
again.
what? Per
hectare.
Per hectare.
Let me say again.
10
The
metric
productivity issue has been resolved by our research institutes.
But we are just not applying.
No,
but the people
we
have
are
not
just not
accepted
taking advantage of it.
We are not using it.
Go to CSIR, Crop Research Institute. They will tell you about crop productivity of different. Look, I got tomato seeds from Dizengoff here, and took it to my school. Yesterday, I visited the school, and the agric master asked me where I got it from. He said, "This one we haven't seen before." I have videos to that effect. So I'm just saying that the thing is here, we are just not taking advantage. We are not taking advantage. And you see, providing people with seeds and going to sleep and say that you have done a good job, I think it's a joke. Because, there's something we call weedicide. There's something we call pesticide. There's something we call labor. All these things that go into it. And there are some of our local produce that are susceptible to what do you call it? Pests
and the weather.
Which need to be given proper attention. But we leave the farmers to their fate, and then we come and complain that the thing didn't work.
Let's add to the fact that there aren't even enough extension officers to even guide these farmers on a daily basis on how to get their farms to be more
because the
productive.
extension officers, nobody is paying attention to them. And the extension officers now are hired on private basis to work for other people. So I'm just saying that if we want to do this thing, we have to be serious, because depending on other countries, the other day it was Russia, Ukraine.
Now it's Niger.
Now it's next door Niger. And look at the way we are suffering. And day in, day out, politicians insist that they are doing well. You are not solving the problem.
In fact, they even argue with you when you say to them.
No, you are not solving the problem. You are not solving the problem. Because if we sit here and you gave the statistics for our imports of chicken.
Yes.
You see, it doesn't paint the real picture, because people are eating more of imported chicken because that's what is available.
Yeah. So if they got a local, they'll eat it.
Yes. Prior to, I mean, in the late, I'll say maybe the early 80s coming up, maybe mid 80s coming up, where we started seeing heavy loads of imported chicken by the company known as Limbreast Foods and others at the time. Prior to that, it wasn't the popular choice. It was never the popular choice.
So it was something that a period of time
and
introduced.
When Limbreast was so successful at that time that they could even be sponsors for Miss Ghana.
Chicken imported. This is the 90s. This would be 90s, early 90s.
Yes, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. What I'm saying is that so people noticed that
it was a viable thing to do. So they followed.
And we opened our gates and then killed our local potential to produce ourselves. I mean, who can carry this Ghana on his head?
Let's push this a bit further. There's a conversation being held currently, which is trying to limit imports using import quotas. So they are basically saying to maybe the rice people that if you're a major rice importer, we are saying that 60% local, 40% imported over a period. I know those conversations are happening among Ministry of Trade. It seems okay on paper, but I feel like there needs to be a bit more open discussion about how to support the production to meet that quota.
Yeah, that's the most critical.
What I'm saying, the policy seems to be saying, okay, you know what? Now 60%, 40%, 60 imported, 40 local or whatever. But the discussion seems to focus more on just the quota without saying how do we get the production to meet the quota we want.
And I'm happy you're saying this, because when you listen to a lot of the importers and we have this wider conversation, the biggest card they play is that, okay, now if you tell us not to import, who will fill the space or who will make up that difference?
Yeah, which is why. So this is my proposal.
So I'm happy.
This is my proposal.
Yes.
And hear me out here. Sometimes, if you pick the top 10 importers of chicken or rice and you tell them that we want to implement a quota system. So if you are given 100 tons of rice, for 2023, you can do 60% imported, 40% local. And we are going to give you a target that in 6 years' time, reduce that ratio to more local and more imported. Now, it will give them, because they have money.
But that's what Nigeria did.
So it will say that you, the importer, go into the farming. Do you get it? So we are saying that we as a government, we are not going to allow you to bring 90% of imported rice. You say you import rice, no problem. You are going to reduce your imports. We are not saying the rice, they will eat it too. But in a number of years' time, the ratio of import to local production must change to favor the local. Then you can then invest in a farm locally to produce that you can then import.
But that's
But
that's on the importer side.
That's what I'm saying. See, this is what I'm saying. The producer of rice as a subsistence farmer cannot compete with the importer's money.
Yes.
So a way to get the rice production locally to go up is to to find a way of forcing the importer to produce it.
I mean,
That's-
helping with production
Because
and
they have the money.
making it attractive for the importer to make that choice. But the thing is that you cannot really force the importer to source from Ghana. You can't do
He has
that.
a business
What
decision
you
to
can
make.
do is you can make it. You can create a disincentive for them importing rather than
Yes,
sourcing
but
from
I'm saying
Ghana.
that you can use a policy
coming.
to
I'm
direct that.
It's all a money issue. It's a financial availability of finances or not. And not every importer has what it takes to go into
Samuel,
production.
let me push this. I'm saying this. I have friends who went into rice production, and they were saying that you need deep pockets
That's what
to.
I mean.
I'm coming. So now I'm saying that the reason why the suggestion about the importers being given a ratio, they have deep pockets compared to your average farmer. They have links with supply chains already. They know what good quality rice is. Now, maybe today they are bringing in 20,000 tons. All right? And they don't use any local. You can say the same for chicken. So I know one of the chicken companies started now doing Akuko Tasty because they realized that there was clamor for local. So my point is that those who do the imports, they have the financial, because it's a money issue. Now, because they have deep pockets, they can then either invest in farms or they can have their own outgrowers that they will nurture and save.
Which is exactly what Akoko Tasty does.
Exactly.
That's what she does.
And that should be the way the rest should be going.
I agree with you. All I'm saying is that
By policy.
You see, all I'm saying is that the policy should create space for people to do this.
Yeah.
Only you can't force them, especially when you don't know their source of financing. You get me?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these companies are connected to sister companies in other countries. You get me? So they are actually in the business because there's an opportunity based on a certain money available coming from somewhere.
Okay, I get you. So when you look at the chicken price differentials, where the local is more expensive than the foreign, you've already pointed out that one of the reasons for this is that the foreign companies, they are supported by their governments to bring the chicken in.
A good number of
Good.
them.
So how do you resolve this? That's where we come in. So on one hand, we create demand for local products like we did for rice, for chicken. So that helps.
No, the demand is there.
So
As for
they are
the
not able to
demand
meet
is
the
there.
production.
We are not able to meet the supply
Yeah.
because we are not able to increase production. And we are not able to increase production because we are not able to, we can't afford the resources required to scale up our production. The cost of feed keeps, an exponential hike. And you can't keep up with it.
So the scale. So for example, if you look at Blue Skies, the size of the company is what enables them to get their their oranges and mangoes at a much cheaper price, for which they can then process and then export to, say, the UK. So I'm still back to the point of saying,
Hang on, before you go on,
Yeah.
check the source of their funding.
I understand that, but you see, these companies, these import companies and these other companies, because they make money here, they have relatively deeper pockets than our farmers.
Very much so.
So-
That's why they use outgrowers.
Yes.
Blue Skies uses
So that the government can use this quota policy to change the narrative, because
no, they do have.
see, what is out? I want to say this. I'm saying that the importer's size, he is more likely to be more competitive compared to a Netherlands producer than a regular farmer. So in terms of government policy, if I'm a government and I have just 1 year, instead of going to local farmers to try and help them to increase their production, it will be too long. If you take the big companies, Olam and Co, and tell Olam that, Olam, you are a global company. I want you to do production of rice in Afife, and you are going to use 2,000 outgrowers because you have deep pockets. We'll give you a subsidized loan, and we want you to change the ratio of the rice that you sell in Ghana from 70% imported, 30 local to 50-50 in 3 years. That government can do.
Yes.
Do you get me?
No,
Government doesn't need to go and produce the rice.
No, I get it. You see, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that, and I'm using Olam not because I know exactly what
Yeah.
happens there,
Yeah.
because you mentioned it.
Yeah.
So companies like an Olam company
I have some names here.
who may have other, if like, branches in other countries, and they have a headquarters in another country somewhere, they are able to negotiate better credit facilities from some international bank somewhere.
Okay.
That makes them competitive in Ghana. For at which place the competitor may have to go to, say, Ghana Commercial Bank and may not have the same credit level of credit facility. So the
That is
inequality is normally at the finance
Good.
level.
But which is why, so good point. So here's government saying, I want Olam to produce local rice.
Yeah.
The government claims that it is setting up a development bank, and a development bank is supposed to support agriculture. So Olam is a big company. If the government policy is forcing Olam to produce more local rice, obviously the government must find a way of giving them competitive
enabling
interest
them.
rates.
Very important.
Do you get it? Because if the guy will get a cheaper interest rate in Turkey, he's not going to take your Ghana 35%.
Which is what most of them have.
Yeah. So the question, you're right, the question of agri-production cannot avoid the question of finance.
At all.
Now, the question of finance, the government itself has said it is setting up banks. It has set up something called GESAL, which is now de-risking agriculture. It is setting up development banks, CBG, ADB. These are government-owned banks. Now, credit risk, if you lend to Bernard Avila and Richard Sky, they don't have a track record in agriculture. You can charge them 20%. But if a big company comes and tells you that I'm going to produce 2,000 hectares of rice in Apife and I have 15 years of track record, you can't charge them the same interest rate. So I am saying that the conversation must be hard, because sometimes the Francophone countries that do well in, like, say, if you go to Cote d'Ivoire, you don't have many small, they have large-scale farmers who are state-supported.
The land ownership system in Ghana is also a disincentive as opposed to sister African countries where communities own large tracts of lands, as opposed to here where individuals own small pieces of lands. So that's how come we are so overexposed to subsistence farming, where everybody is thinking, okay, let me use my 3 acres and do something that I can eat with my family. If I get surplus, I sell.
Government, again, is the answer.
A lot of them don't have storage facilities. A lot of them don't have storage facilities. In fact, they don't even think about storage facilities. If you do a trip throughout these villages, you will see that the kind of storage facilities that prevails will be what we used to have 3 decades ago.
So, again, government can solve the problem.
Of course, government has to solve the problem, not just give us slogans.
Government is all the things you've identified. You mentioned the export subsidy from the foreign countries. You mentioned the source of financing. You mentioned land tenure system. These bottlenecks can only be solved by a government. So the government is not the one to go and plant rice. What the government is supposed to do is to make sure that rice growers get access to good land. Rice growers get access to good credit. But use policy to make sure that incentive, we get the benefit. So what tends to happen is that when people make the windfall, the price doesn't benefit the local producer, the local buyer. So the government must say, I'm going to give you all these things, get you the land, whatever you need, but you have to be committed to fair pricing. But that's where the relationship between our politics and our big business becomes murky. Because for some reason, we are not able to follow through. So we launch the policy. It seems very, very good on paper. A lot of private players come in. Then it becomes a question of let's create as much money and share, instead of saying let's let the benefit, because now you want to reduce the gap between cheap chicken import and expensive local rice, local chicken. And that one, you have to follow through the policy, because the producer, he wants to make profit. And if you don't follow through, and the problem is that our politicians, you are right, they are not committed to pursuing the policy to its end. They want to be given credit for initiating the policy. How can you say PFJ is a success when the price of feed keeps going up? Meanwhile, soya and rice, soya and maize are your number 1 products that you are supposed to produce under PFG, and the poultry farmers can't get it.
How many companies have been given incentives to go into manufacture of feed, production of feed?
Good question.
How many companies have been given incentives, tax waivers and all these things, so they will go into production of insecticides, pesticides, weedicides? It's just one side of the equation is just getting the seeds and the seedlings. The other side is how to keep it healthy so that you can increase the yield. They spent 3 months cultivating something. By harvest time, insects and pests have destroyed everything.
Let's deal with the land issue you raised for 2 minutes. I wanted some comments on this because you are right. In some of the countries we refer to, the government owns a lot of land, or the ownership of the land does not create the kind of problems that. So if you're a large-scale producer in Ghana, you deal with chiefs from different areas. Sometimes 2-3 people say they have the same land, and the cost of acquiring the land and keeping the land is a disincentive. Now, I heard Yamansaku's lecture where he says one of the biggest impediments to development is land tenure, and that all the countries that we admire who have done well, China, Malaysia, they tackled the land issue at some point. They took the land issue on, where they said, we are going to either nationalize or reduce the impact of chiefs. They did something which was not popular, but they are breathing now. I think the land problem in Ghana has become like our albatross. And because of the political cycle, the political will to implement, you can't even implement a Boboya policy in the market. Sometimes you can't even implement a Boboya policy in Kumasi market. How can you tackle land? Do you get it? But if we don't tackle the land issue, we won't solve the housing problem, we won't solve the agric problem, we won't solve the development problem. So I don't know if you guys have any ideas as to how a government can say, at least for agric, because see, the problem with land is that sometimes government comes in and then they share the land to their friends to build houses. Okay, so the government credibility, politicians' credibility in land is very suspect. But I think a case can be made for agric, where you can come up with a solution to say, okay, you have large tracts of land as a community. If a large-scale farmer comes and they can have an arrangement where the people who own the land have a percentage of the farm or something, or government says we are taking over lands compulsorily for farming for 50 years, and then we'll give it back to the original owners after farming. I think that we have to talk about land in a progressive way, because sometimes if the land question is not addressed, do you understand?
Yeah.
And we need a radical solution which may not be pleasant. I am saying that for agric purpose, you can take over the land for a period and say it is going to support state interest farms, not even state owned. So you are saying the government's equity in the farm is the land. The chiefs and the village have 30% or 20% or whatever of the proceeds or whatever. But the land issue is not, is the because all our West African neighbors who are francophone, they have better land tenure than we do.
Oh yeah,
they all do.
I mean,
they are the only guys who do this land thing with the way we do it.
You will hardly find a cocoa farm properly so described in Côte d'Ivoire, which is just 2 acres.
Oh.
2 acres cocoa farm. No,
They've
you won't find
gone
that.
past that.
They are 100 acres, 100 hectares, 50 hectares.
You can even drive through the farm and
Yes, that's how they do it.
Yeah.
And they even do tourism to cocoa farms in Côte d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
Tourism.
Yeah.
But here, 1, 2 trees, you say cocoa farm.
And then the old man who started a farm too is sick. His son doesn't even want to do the farm again.
Because it's not attractive.
Then
Why
the
should
whole
son
thing
do it?
Battling with galamsey and all of that.
So I think that, again, a way of going forward, land tenure must become one of the key challenges our governments deal with. And I'm really looking forward to hearing ideas about how to crack the land equation. Sky, let me take your comment.
Just want to read something to you, pulled with the support of Binge and related web searches. So the government of Ghana, responding directly to what you said about land, planned to introduce land banks in 2010, and this was done. It was supposed to be part of its efforts to improve land administration and management in the country. So land banks basically are institutions that acquire and they hold and manage land for various purposes, such as facilitating land transactions, providing land for development projects, resolving land disputes, and promoting land reform. Now, the idea of land banks in our country was proposed by Ernest Ayite and Christopher Udry. These are 2 economists who conducted a study on the problems and prospects of land markets in Ghana. And they suggested that land banks could help create property rights, reduce land conflicts, which we see all over the country, giving rise to land guards, increase investment incentives, and improve access to credit for farmers and entrepreneurs. Now, we remember that the government of Ghana adopted the concept of land banks as part of its national land policy and its land administration project, LAP, LAP 1, LAP 2, and all of those things that they say, which aim to harmonize the customary and statutory systems of land tenure and registration in Ghana. Now, the government allocated 10 million Ghana cedis, which is 1.6 million US dollars, for the establishment of land banks in 2010. However, Bernard, the implementation of land banks in Ghana faced some challenges and delays, such as lack of legal framework. In fact, the reviewed Land Act, or the amended one, or the revised one, was just passed, a couple of years ago. Institutional capacity was also not there. Stakeholder participation and public awareness. And you remember that the donor institutions pumped a lot of money into LAP 1 and really exactly. But go and see the Lands Commission, what do you call it, where we do the registration and all of that. Recently, we're told that it had burned down or parts of it had burned down because of all kinds of suspicions and all of that. Now, as of 2021, it is not clear whether the land banks in Ghana have been fully operationalized or effective in achieving their intended goals. Now, some reports indicate that some land banks have been established in some regions, such as the Greater Accra, Ashanti, and Eastern region. However, other reports suggest that land banks have not been able to address the underlying issues of land governance, such as corruption, inefficiency, fragmentation, and insecurity. So, Bernard, it seems that we go knowing that, we have a way of solving the problem. And then we throw the national kitty at it. And then Parliament will have discussions. Politicians will run off with it. And then we go into the field hoping to implement it, only to come back years later. And we are sitting here still talking about land tenure.
So what happens to that policy?
I just read to you comprehensive, details of what may have failed the policy. So that it is not as though we do not know that if we tackle the land problem, we have a way to solving the many problems that are related to farming and all of that. In fact, we fought the colonial masters who wanted to nationalize or perhaps seize the lands of this country and cede it to the Brits.
Yeah. So we are one of the few countries in Africa where the colonialists didn't take over our lands because of the Aborigines' rights protection.
Bernard. But you see, what have we done with the land?
So I wanted some insight into this proposal by IET. When it says a land bank, what is he talking about?
Also, as I explained in what I told you earlier, so they basically would acquire
the government.
So if it is the government that is
different
leading
tracts of land together under one and packaging it together for a purpose for development, either real estate or agriculture.
Farming,
yeah.
And how do you compensate the original owners?
So, if you look at our constitution, you cannot go and seize land from somebody without paying appropriate compensation if you are acting in the interest of the state. So when you take over land from, say, Adan, the people of Adan, or the people of, Asokwa, or whichever country that you go to, if you take over the land and you seek to use it for development in the interest of the state, or for some reason, compensation must be paid. Now, the land banks were introduced as a way of dealing with the multiple sale issues that you talked about. If an investor is coming in from Israel and he wants to grow so many hectares of rice, and he wants to go to Aveima, you don't want a situation where he goes to Aveima. He got land from your grandfather, and then 2 days later, your uncle's side comes in and said, no, it will not happen.
So that's the concept of the land.
Exactly. So the idea was to create a reliable go-to.
Okay. So let's sort of move this.
In some parts of the world, the land bank packaging always involves a financial services company, a bank, so that the compensation for the owners who are having to give up their lands will be dealt with by the banking partner. Institution. It's always the case, and it's more sustainable. You get me? Meaning that the bank would also be a partner in the whole packaging of the land bank. And in fact, is actually the most sustainable way. In the UK, this is how they have gone about with their real estate development, using the land banking system.
So it's a proven policy.
Oh yes. The next level for me is now assigning.
Will our chiefs agree?
No, they will agree.
You think so?
No, they will agree because, a lot of chiefs are frustrated because they have parcels of lands that have not been put to proper use. Look, a case in point is the parcel of lands in the Kumfi. If you look at the Ghana demographic survey report, a Kumfi area used to be the poorest part of the central region. I'm not so sure if they can say the same today because of the likes of the juice company, was it?
Eku
Juice.
It's now a Kumfi juice.
A Kumfi juice, yes, a Kumfi juice.
To.
Yeah, you understand? Because if you look at that, they have put the land to proper use, but the whole tract of land doesn't belong to one person. So this land bank idea, if we say that this whole area, we are assigning to, say, the cultivation of cassava. So everybody bring your land together. Now, when your land is taken, it will not be available to you until after, say, 50 years. But within that period, this is how you are going to be compensated. If it's made clear to them, they will do it.
Now, let me read the extensions or the conclusions of what Ayete and Udri say. And we're talking Professor Ayete. So they argue that the land bank leverages three characteristics to provide secure land tenure, eventually at a profit. It rents out plots only once. It can hold plots for the long term, avoiding the churning that provides an opportunity for individual chiefs to rent out the same plot of land multiple times. It can be large, thus building a reputation for renting out plots only once and charging an appropriately higher price in exchange for that added security. In effect, the land bank can internalize the free rider problem that afflicts the chiefs. Now, somewhere it goes on to say that the most important actual use of a land bank in Ghana will be to facilitate the consolidation of plots for relatively large-scale commercial projects. An investor with a large-scale project would need to attempt to rent additional plots to increase her likelihood of actually obtaining enough plots to implement the project. This provides an additional margin for a land bank to improve the efficiency of allocation.
Can this be piloted?
This was
before it is nationally done. So if, for example, a region could take it up, because it seems like a very sensible idea, but maybe before you can implement on a large scale, you can say, maybe let's go to Bono East, where maybe the chiefs are willing to test it and let people see the benefit. Because in Ghana, there's a lot of skepticism and mistrust for government generally because of some of the things that are happening. So I don't know whether there are case studies of implementation of this land bank system. But I just wanted to summarize and say...
No, I just want to say, in response to that, that this was supposed to be what the government adopted.
In 2010.
Yeah, that's right. And threw money at it, hoping that it was going to fix the problem.
I did not.
But we are back to square one. You see? So...
But do we know why it failed?
I mentioned those failures to you. The lack of legal framework, the lack of policy and issues having to do with resources and technical competence and all of that. Bernard, the same thing goes for the PFJ. We spent billions of Ghana cedis. We were told that millions of farmers had access. And the deliverables in terms of how it should impact food prices, and then also ensure that, Charlie, we have enough food to eat. We are back to this point. So you ask yourself, all the billions that we spent, what did we spend it on? Yet the person who led that effort is seeking the vote of NPP people today to become the presidential candidate. Now, the question that the NPP people should be asking is, you were put in charge of a major government policy to transform agriculture in a way that ensures that we create jobs and sustainable jobs. There will be transfer of skills because,
Security.
exactly, food security in this country and wealth creation. Now, have you been able to achieve all of these things as to come to us now and expect that we will vote for you? And the other question is, what has the committee responsible for agriculture and finance, the two committees, what have they been doing? Because it is not enough for someone who has managed a project of this size to go and stand on the platform and say, we achieved this and that. These things have got to be investigated because we committed the public purse to it.
So they should check and see a cost-benefit analysis of PFJ, how much was put in there, how much has been gotten out. Well, Sky, it will become part of political football because your parliament is very divided. So all the MPP people will say PFJ and ECO. And this will say PFJ.
But if you
have you heard that? Have you heard that when you go to Makola, there's an MPP side and the
No,
NDC
but in
side?
parliament there is. In parliament,
No, what I'm saying is that
I'm saying this in
we are all
committee.
feeling the same heat. So you can joke and say that the thing is working. The thing is not working, you say it's working.
You yourself told us that a professor told you that the marketplace is the altar where you go to confess your sins.
When you go to the market, you can't.
Exactly. Now, if you modify that within the context of politics, you cannot say that you have prosecuted a policy that actually works, that satisfied all the requirements that you yourself set out for yourself. And yet, after just 2 weeks of military takeover in Niger, we don't have sabala to eat. And you will tell me that the policy has succeeded? Has the price of, what do you call it?
All the
Cassava gone down?
Yeah, so it's just, the points are very clear. What I wanted to ask, so going forward, what do we do? We've proposed about 4 solutions. You've spoken about the financing part, spoken about the land part. But the other big issue is the subsidies that the country spend. I have some information here which is very serious.
Bernard, even subsidies.
Just give me a minute.
No, I just
To
want to run a comment.
incentivize people to do that.
Look,
Yeah.
So,
we
I'm
have
coming.
spent millions of dollars.
I'm
I
giving an example.
beg you, Pa. I
On
beg you.
paper, on paper.
Yeah, but you see, we have spent. You see, every time we talk about subsidies, people are just stealing the money. We have spent millions of US dollars every year to import fertilizer into this country. The question you ask yourself is, how come these fertilizers get into Cameroon, as we are told, and they are sold on the open market? You go to Togo, you find them. You go to Benin, you
You
find
mean
them.
Ghana fertilizer?
Yeah.
Ghana fertilizers.
There was
God punish
there
them.
was so much smuggling that the minister had to even, I think they even paused the program at some point. There was so much smuggling. So
What kind of people are we?
So the system of fertilizer subsidy was compromised to a point where they had to even pause because the fertilizer was all over. Let's read some comments. I was just going to point out to you that the
please,
European...
please. No. You are talking about the subsidy
Yes,
thing.
so the European Commission approved under the EU state aid rules
Ghana,
two that schemes with a total budget of 1.47 billion euros. This is to support farmers. Now, this scheme will run from now till 2028, open to small and medium-sized livestock farmers in the Netherlands that voluntarily close their breeding sites provided that their current nitrogen deposition load exceeds certain minimum levels. And by way of compensation, one of the schemes is called the LBV scheme. Direct grants to compensate up to 100% of the losses incurred by farmers who decide to close their dairy, cattle, pig and poultry breeding sites, in particular relating to the loss of production capacity and production gains, depending on the area where the breeding site is situated, to eligible farmers. And then there's something called the LBV Plus scheme, open to so-called peak load emitting breeding sites who emit high levels of nitrogen per year. You know, these cattle, they emit a lot of nitrogen. So some farmers are being incentivized to close their farms or reduce their output. And there's billions of euros to be given directly to them to compensate. We haven't spoken about other grants that help them sell cheaper. So the point you're making is that we solve the finance, we solve the land, we solve the production. But even that, if we don't have policies that protect our markets, they will still bring it here and dump it here because their government is giving them billions. Because as he said, they carve out and say, you, chicken, Ghana, take over. Which is where we have to also have policies that say, no, we cannot allow our market to be a dumping ground for somebody's cheap product, and we have to protect our local farmers. So it's a very big conversation. Nathan, let's read some quick comments on this. And that's why everything we need to do to protect our producers, to protect our markets, and to stimulate demand for local products is very, very important.
Very,
Issues
very,
like
very important.
you can't force me to eat frozen imported chicken if I want akoko tasty, right? So those things are also part, because you control people also by the way you control their taste.
But we also in our homes also have to do our part.
And the media has to then help.
Yes.
You
We
know,
have to do
so-
our part.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. Nathan, please help me. Help me this morning.
When you
All right,
go to
this
your
one-
storeroom, what do you see?
This one says, what's
When
the
you walk
position?
into your storeroom, Bernard, what do you see?
I see ripe plantain.
Is that the
And
only
I see
thing?
go-go rice.
What else do you see?
And I see niche cocoa drink.
What else do you see? Choco Pop.
I also see Incolac.
So go to all of that.
No, but I'm quite locally compliant.
You are quite locally.
Oh,
compliant.
I am.
That's
Yam.
good too.
I have local rice and
You
foreign
have
rice.
Tom Brown.
A lot of it.
You have Kokli Jogbon.
I have.
You have wheat.
I have a condo
Kondo.
that we do.
Cassava dough.
Yes, we have all those things.
Very well.
Okay, all right.
We also have series.
This one says, what's the
Choco
position of Ukraine in our import destinations list?
No, Ukraine is free.
Flour
I
and
don't have that list here.
We bring flour
Okay.
and the wheat from
All right,
there.
this one says, our leaders are just wicked. My brother, can you imagine? I'm a graduate with a degree in construction technology, but I left my certificate and I'm into maize farming in the Upper West region, and it's doing well for me. Do you remember the government of Ghana launched a program called YouStart? I applied for the program for support to increase my farm or grow my farm. And you won't believe, my brother, they didn't even consider my application. But as I'm speaking to you, people are in workshops, or people have been in the workshops in the last 3 weeks. All this planting for food and something are in government books. They are not on the field, okay? Dominic says, there are few greenhouse farms in Ghana producing tomatoes with long shelf span, but the problem is lack of credit facility for farmers and theft from workers. Despite the use of security and CCTV, they will always form cartels.
The CCTV there, they know how to instruct it to look elsewhere. CCTV. Well,
This one says, my name is Solomon Alofa. I'm currently working in Afenia. I used to farm at my mother's place in Adoso when school was on vacation, but I've stopped because of the expenses. The price of weedicide, pesticide, and labor. He says. This one says, the kids still do agriculture, but in minute ways. I try to inculcate planting and practical methods when I teach my students these things. What I implemented was urban farming, hydroponic systems, and new ways like planting without soil. And the excitement on the kids' face when they see that it works is amazing. Great things in little ways. Felix from Adenta. Moses from Abokobi says, I've been planting cassava and plantain in my backyard. I've harvested the cassava twice. We are blessed with fertile grounds. We are just not serious. Our main issues are glut and post-production losses.
More comments on this matter?
Majid from Kumasi says, I think we have succeeded in making the youth in the country think that we can only make it by sitting in an office. Our educational plan has changed from more practical-based subjects to theoretical ones. Where are these topics we used to study? Building, basic development and technology, agricultural science, and the rest. We have created an environment that is making all the youth and kids leave the village to the city because they believe they have no future in agriculture. The farm produce are not bought at good prices. Therefore, the farmers are poor. No farmer will want the same situation for their wards. What happens is that when they have the opportunity to come for education in the towns and cities, they never go back. And that's how come our production is declining.
Long one, but very important.
Yeah. This one says, thank you for your discussion on agric produce. Please, the insecticide and herbicides are expensive. Agriculture does not thrive on fertilizer. If government helps with not only fertilizer subsidy, but also subsidized seeds and the rest, food production will be all right.
You are.
Lots of comments.
This one says, it's all about priorities and how our big men want to get quick money or money quickly into their pockets for their businesses and campaigns. It's sad, guys. Just focus on cocoa board. Why is the government only targeting cocoa board because of cocoa? And even though Galamsey is destroying the industry, they still talk as if everything is okay just to get the syndicated loans to spend. Okay, and he says plantations are very key in every developing country.
So that was KK in Tema.
All right. And this one says, we are jokers. We know what to do to solve the agric problems. Our leaders are just not ready. Their focus is winning elections. Ask them about PFG and RFG. It's a scam. Everything you see here is mostly imported. We bring animals from Niger, Chad, Burkina Faso. Look at the countries.
Oh.
Those who are ready to work are not helped. The money goes to foot soldiers and party people who don't even own farms.
Oh, Charlie.
Good man in Anya.
Charlie.
Okay, this one is asking the report from which you were reading. Okay, and
It's not a public.
It's not a
report.
public
It's-
document. It's
So,
not-
but you can Google these reports.
It's a synopsis we put together for a panel that I.
Yeah.
I sort of-
You can Google and get maybe a bit dated, but you
Yeah.
can get some.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, Kofi Ntema says, we can all admit that Ghana is a field project. Should every ministerial position be occupied by a politician? Why can't we have industry experts run such portfolios as the business they manage?
But they can't tip the food soldiers.
Says, I'm not surprised that Ukraine is at war and we are the worst affected. Niger is experiencing a coup and we can't have onions. What happened to PFJ and 1V1D with the billions spent? Says Bob Marley was right. The fool is
In
thirsty.
the abundance of
abundance
water,
of
the
water.
fool is thirsty.
All right. Kofi Ajekum in Akosombo says, it's as if we are cursed as a country when it comes to production of anything. The ones that are produced are not valued. The ones we import to plenty matters anytime there is an insurgency from their origin nations. It's even funny when you said the Russian-Ukraine war seems to have affected us more than every other country.
But that's not true.
This one says, I'm a nurse in Abetifi. I try to do some small backyard farming. I have plantain, cassava, pepper, a little maize, and it's really helped. Surprisingly, my kids came back from Accra. We took some pear, and after that, they nursed it, and they are growing well. In fact, we need a rethink. Celestine.
All right.
Let me read this quick one coming in from Cyril, who says, Kai, the farmers are disincentivized to produce on a large scale because of the high input costs, but low produce prices resulting from lack of storage facilities and guaranteed prices. Mostly, it is the middlemen and those who sell to direct consumers that make the money off the farmers. Typical example, can you imagine market women come to my farm to buy my fresh corn for 8 cobs for 5 Ghana cedis. Meanwhile, they will go to sell the roasted or boiled one for 1 cedi, for 4 Ghana cedis and above. We are not making money in farming.
Let me read one from a farmer as well. It says, we need, good morning, Bella. We just need hybrid seeds for the vegetable production. Now, government has imposed a tax on some of the agric inputs in the sector. These are some of the issues hurting us in the industry. This is a large-scale vegetable farmer.
The hybrid seeds are available.
But you're saying that there's tax on it, so it makes it more expensive, right? So, yeah.
There are local institutions that are producing hybrid seeds. The thing, I think your last text, Sky, I think it summarizes everything we've been saying so far. Itemized the support that they require, incentives, all these things coming together. We put the incentive program, financing, giving people so and so, and then party people are giving priority, including party people who haven't even seen a hole before, are giving money to go and do farms. By the time you go, they build small hotels on the farmland. When you say, they say, when I come to the farm, this is where I'll rest. So you build a hotel on the farm before you even start the farming. And this person is walking around. He's not in jail.
It's delegate.
Wow, look at this.
So when they see the people, it's just votes sitting there.
Joke country like this.
Votes. It is not how to solve the problem. I mean, so that,
Well, we want to solve the problem. So we have a program we want you to attend.
Okay.
So we don't just discuss the issue. So on 26th and 27th of August, we are exhibiting the very best of Ghana. Whether you are an SME, a startup, a research or manufacturing industry, a homegrown business or indigenous corporate body, join us for 2 days of exhibition at the AMA head office from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. Call 0205 973 973 to come and showcase what you have and also come and watch what is going on. Bring the family. It will be 2 days of a lot of excitement, lots to eat, lots to drink, lots of places for kids to play. But more importantly, it's like the biggest exhibition of made in Ghana ideas, services, products, businesses, and platforms. So register today, 0205973973. This is the third year of This is Ghana, or the second?
This is the fourth.
The fourth This is Ghana.
The fourth. The first one was at Alisa Hotel.
It's getting bigger, it's getting better, it's getting more exciting.
We did the rice one too at Aviation Social
And
Center.
then we did one This is Ghana 2022,
That's
and then we did this one as well.
Yes.
It's getting bigger.
Yesterday, Bridget Jogwenuku brought us Beku from the
So where's my own?
Jomi. Oh no, I have yours there. It's waiting for you. Nathan got it.
Oh yeah, sharing in father side, mother side.
Unfortunately, Papa.
Bridget. Bridget. I knew Bridget. I knew you before all these guys were born. Bridget.
You're not on air every day. So you don't benefit from the I don't like oil. Now, are you ready to embark on a transformative journey and leave a lasting impact on the world of business? Look no further than the MBA Impact Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program at the prestigious UPSA, program designed to empower you with the necessary knowledge and tools to lead with purpose, to navigate complex challenges and seize opportunities in today's ever-changing global landscape. Now, at UPSA, we believe in empowering future leaders to create a better world through business. Enroll in our MBA Impact, which is in partnership with the Catholic University of Milan. Kindly reach out to Dr. Andrews Ayiku on 0244 760 425. That's 0244 760 425. Register now and be part of this great MBA program. We'll be right back with more. We'll be speaking to the Mega 6 Lotto people. They have a very important announcement to make about their CSR fund. We'll be discussing some of that on the show in a second. Before that, Nathan?
Yes, Standard Water has over 25 years of experience in providing quality and refreshing water to quench your thirst. They are currently in 11 regions and they are expanding to cover every single part of the country. Now, they have water to take care of all your needs: sachet water, bottled water, water for your dispenser, and water for all your special occasions. Call them on 0202 055 703 or 0547 334 385. And Standard Water is available for purchase from supermarkets, retail shops, and sales delivery trucks. This ad is FDA approved. Now, add entertainment to your guest experience with DSTV for Business for your restaurant, hotel, pub, or office. DSTV for Business gives you the chance to legally show all Premier League games live and in HD with the option of exciting commentary in 3 on your premises. Catch all the goals, moments, clashes, derbies, and drama, and all of those things. Call DSTV for Business on 0302 740 566 or send an email at dstvbusinessghana@gh.multichoice.com. You can visit dstv.com/business/en-gh. Now, the literacy challenge is getting even more exciting. Who makes it to the next round? Now, stay tuned to Citi 97.3 FM, Citi TV, to find out who gets to take part in the aptitude test. The top 50 contestants from level 1 are going into that aptitude test, which will be done on Saturday, August 12th at the Accra Digital Center at 12 noon. Now, the top 10 from the aptitude test will move on to the classic quiz competition a little later for a chance to win 10,000 CDs. Call 0558 973 973 for more details. The Literacy Challenge 2023 is powered by Citi TV, supported by Citi FM, and sponsored by the Ghana National Gas Company, Ribi, Crunchy Biscuits by M4 Foods, SIC Insurance PLC, Prospectus Ghana Limited, Dex Technology, A-Life Soap, and Fortune Rice.